Well, people, I've got to say, this whole Formula One situation is pretty fucking crazy, right? It's pretty crazy. Now, whenever I hear someone, you know what I mean, just be like, oh no, you shouldn't do it because of the ramifications it could cause, that always sounds mad suspicious, right? Because they're not going, don't do it because you're lying, right? They're just like, no, but the consequences. And it's just like, what are we looking for? To protect people who did wrong, or get down to the truth and do what's right? You know what I mean? So I had a little look and it's pretty fucking crazy. So what happened is in Formula One, right, the 2008 championship, Lewis Hamilton won. He became that was his first championship, I believe. I think he was 23 at the time. You know what I mean? Now, the thing was, so the last race I think was in Brazil, but it was the Singapore Grand Prix that really caused issues, really caused issues. And there's this whole conspiracy, right, that's being talked about, right? And you're like, what happened? And you know, like at the time, it's 2008, right? Nothing happened. But then you learn that this was actually a conspiracy, because conspiracy gets thrown out like, you're only like you're feeding the motherfucking birds. You're Mary Poppins, you feel me? Now, this actually was because it was the first time they were ever in Singapore. It was a night race, which I feel that's the only one, right? I might be. I don't think Le Mans is. No, Le Mans is something else. Um, Gosh, Monaco, right? I think Monaco. I think that's during the day. Uh, so there was all of these big things happening, right? And also, I think Bernie Ecclestone was leaving or stuff. Who knows? I never really follow Formula One, to be honest with you people, but so there was a big crash with the cars, and Alonso won the Grand Prix, right? So that's what went down. Now, what it then turns out, because it was because at the time Renault, Alonso raced for Renault, right? And it was their second driver that crashed. Now, I think no one really thought anything of it, because he was just having a nightmare of a season. He wasn't winning, he wasn't performing well, it was all over the place. And so they were like, oh, he crashed, safety car comes out. Alonso had already pitted, so he was on fresh tires, he fueled up, which gave him a big advantage. So he goes on to win, which was his first win of that season as well, because he wasn't having a great one. Now, all of this, and because of the crash and the pitting and everything, Massa, who was, like in the vying for the championship, it was between Lewis Hamilton and Felipe Massa. Now, Massa, because of the safety car and everything, he didn't finish in the points, right? Which then had it to 1 point on the final race. Now, I believe if Massa had pointed, he would have won the championship. You know what I mean? And it was all this whole thing. So no one knew what had went down. But then the following year, Renault sacked Piquet Jr., who was their second driver. He got pissed. You know, because I think he's thinking, I did you a solid, and then you're gonna, just boot me. So he went to the the Formula One heads and said, you know what, this is what happened in Singapore. So he told them exactly what happened. And because Bernie Ecclestone didn't want to, make the sport look corrupt and dirty more than it already looks, they didn't investigate. Right? They were like, oh, we want to give the championship to Hamilton, we're crowning the champion, and then that's all that. Because this was before the last race that Piquet, Piquet, it was the year before. No, Piquet, sorry, I got mixed up. Piquet's dad, right, told them what happened before in 2008, before the last race. But then the following year, they, because they didn't want to disrupt anything, they let it lie. Then Piquet gets sacked. He comes forward, right? So he came forward, told them the truth. They gave him immunity, right? Then they hit up some of the principals at Renault, right? They contacted them to find out, what is this true? And what is crazy, right? So the chief engineer at the time, Pat Symonds, right, the executive director of engineering, said it was Piquet's idea to do the crash to force a safety driver out, right? Which you're like, he's the second driver, right? The second driver is never high up. You know what I mean? Because it's all about the first driver, Alonso. So you know what I mean? Symonds is kind of saying, oh yeah, no, he said it. So we all went with, it's just like, on what earth is anyone going to believe that the second driver had the power to put any of this into play? Right. But also the big thing, right, with what Symonds said, he didn't deny it. Right. So he's basically admitted that they did do this thing. You know what I mean? Which is crazy. So we know this happened. And we know Formula One tried to keep it secret. So now Massa is suing, right? He's suing Formula One. He feels that the result should be annulled, which would mean he gets the championship. And that seems pretty fair, right? That seems pretty fair. If everything was corrupt, you know what I mean? We know, because look, in athletics, they keep blood samples for years, right? So they can constantly check once they've, upped their technology, right? And if anything is found, they strip people of those medals, and then the medals go down. It's happened countless times, right? When they took the medals from Lance Armstrong, it went down to the next clean person, who was something like 20th or something insane. You know what I mean? Because everyone's dirty in cycling. But that's what happens. So why should it be any different in Formula One, right? if what happened was corrupt, it was a conspiracy, the heads in F1 tried to cover it up, I feel Massa has a case. You know what I mean? And the Renault team admitted to it all. You know, everything, there's records of everything. There's records of them talking to organize the crash just before it happened. You know, make sure everyone's on point and all of that. There's the transcript with Bernie Ecclestone. You know, it's all there. So for you know, the Mercedes boss, Toto Wolff, to go, oh yeah, Massa should just leave it. It's kind of, that's some weird ass shit. That's some weird ass shit. But then the other crazy thing is, right? Mercedes are monitoring the situation because Lewis Hamilton had a whole safety car situation last year. Right? So if Massa gets this, they're gonna sue. So it's not like, you know, he's saying Massa should leave it, but it's not like oh, we would, you know, if we had that sort of information, we'd never try and, you know, roll back results. No, they will do it if given the opportunity. So it's so weird that this dude who's running a team doesn't want the sport to be just transparent and clean. Isn't looking, because I would feel most people would be like, yo, whatever we need to do to ensure that this is an even play. I mean, it's never an even playing ground, right? Because although every car is using the same engine, they're not the same, right? It's not really down to the most skillful driver. It's who's got the most powerful car, as we've seen, because Hamilton has been terrible this season, you know? So, yeah, it's a very weird thing in Formula One, people. It's very weird. And I go, Felipe Massa, do you, and get this shit brought to light because it stinks.